and he said, I don't even know if this deck's well positioned, but it's the deck that I know, so I'm just going to play it and then evaluate things after the tournament.
Yep.
So I don't think this is a decision that he made or he felt that this deck was very well positioned or anything like that. And he even said my Eldrazi matchup is horrific. I don't expect I can ever beat. Excuse me. I don't think I can expect to ever beat it, but he actually got by one early in the tournament. So here we are.
And some new cards, a little bit of sampling here going on for Lossett. One main deck copy of Colitis, which we've seen a little bit. Jerry Thompson also playing a main deck copy this weekend. And one main deck copy of Flaying Tendrils, which is replacing the Radiant Flames we've occasionally seen in this list. Makes a little more sense here, as that is something that you can find to bring to light, which you cannot do with Radiant Flames.
Well, we're underway here in game number 1 of round 12. Joe Lossett, number 12 on our Season 1 leaderboard. 2 buys coming into the weekend. He'll play at duress off of that Sunken Hollow, get an idea of exactly what his opponent is playing, and he'll find out very quickly that it is Rally of the Ancestors here for Samir Black. A Rally and Eclectic Company in hand, along with an Nantuko Husk, a Canopy Vista, a Plains, a Windswept Heath, and I believe a Jace of Vryn's Prodigy as well.
And Lossett, even without any explicit hate for the deck, game 1, is bringing a reasonable amount of interaction to the table. Multiple main deck copies of Duress, multiple main deck copies of Silk Wrap, cards like Slumgar's Command, Flaying Tendrils that can randomly be haymakers at certain spots, a Languish, which could be good if you're keeping him off the spells. So he isn't playing with anything like Anafenza. He doesn't have any direct anti-rally stuff, but his main deck is equipped with enough cards that have overlap in the matchup.
And it's actually not a Jace. It's actually Michael Majors' favorite bird.
The owl.
Yes, the Palace Familiar actually is the blue card right now in Samir's hand as he sacrifices a Flooded Strand and falls down to 19. So looking to play a different take on Elvish Visionary. And Elvish Visionary and this are relatively different cards. This is a flyer, and this deck is pretty weak against flying. It's a blue card, so it changes the mana base. And it sacks well to Nantuko Husk.
So it doesn't provide the same velocity as Elvish Visionary, and it's worse for things like hitting your land drops early on in the game. The upshot is you get to block flyers and attack planeswalkers more effectively than the builds that Elvish Visionary can do. So it's not quite as synergistic with the core elements of the deck, but flying has value for a deck that doesn't really have flying anywhere else.
A Wooded Foothills here from Joe. He'll sacrifice that, fall down to 18, and we'll see him dig a land out of the deck. No idea which one it's going to be, so we'll wait to find out.
Also, the early game chip shots this card facilitates can get people into Zulaport Cutthroat range much earlier on in the game. So.
Smoldering Marsh is what Joe has selected.
Also, minor benefits to your mana base. If your 2-drops are both blue in Jace and Palace Familiar, you can bias your mana a little bit more towards blue and be missing colors of mana early on in the game a little bit less frequently.
Polluted Delta, the draw here for the set to go along with the Windswept Heath and a Flooded Strand. Oh, 5-color decks. There's a Windswept Heath. He'll pass the turn back. And black untap, draw a card, picked up a copy of Reflector Mage. Here comes the Palace Familiar. And now here's Nantuko Husk. Some of us like to call this a combo.
Yes, yeah. I am among them.
There's a basic forest. Lossett will sacrifice the Windswept Heath. A lot of fetching to be done, of course, for each deck and in this format in general.
And getting into the habit of shortcutting this, and that's something if you watch Todd Anderson and Jerry Thompson, you see all the time. They are willing to leak a little bit of information. It's very subtle, but they'll just shortcut with their fetch lands early on in the game. You can sometimes pick up a little bit of information based on the lands they're fetching, but they're willing to concede that just to keep the ball moving, because games of Standard can go on for a long time, especially when you're playing the slower decks, and the fetch lands do not help this.
Got to get the games done.
And this has historically been an issue for Joe Lossett. Not the fastest Magic player, but so far through 11 rounds, although I suppose he's only played 9 of them, no draws. Still very solid. This is a deck where he's picked up several draws in the course of the opens that I've covered him playing in.
Basic Plains here for Lossett. Yeah, I'm just checking to make sure. Yeah, Joe still has Siege Rhinos. I figured he would.
Yeah.
One of the better things to, of course, be finding with Bring to Light. Yeah, this one's not bad either.
Ooh.
Colitis in this matchup
has been all sorts of trouble. Now, with the printing of Reflector Mage, this card is not as good as it would have been a month ago, but still very solid.
And here is Reflector Mage. Get that weak stuff out of here. Open up an attack here for Nantuko Husk and a Palace Familiar. And Lossett will fall a little bit lower. Lossett already down to 12. Let's see what this is going to be. Siege Rhino. That will resolve. Lossett's going to go up to 15. He's got a land and Polluted Delta to play. And now he'll just pass the turn back, it appears. So over to black we'll go. And I think that may have been Merciless Executioner.
That's quite the draw here.
But maybe not.
Well, I think what Samir would like to do is hopefully trade the Siege Rhino off here with the Nantuko Husk and then use the Merciless Executioner to get Kalitas off the table. The issue with this attack is it looks pretty shabby if Lossett puts the Siege Rhino in front of the Reflector Mage.
Well, Joe's going to think a little bit here about what the heck is going on.
I guess the flip side of that is if you put the Reflector Mage in the graveyard, suddenly the rally is much more significant.
Well, there's your block. Maybe.
Cannot block the Palace Familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Do not try.
Yeah. Flying, ever heard of it?
Flying on over.
You know, Elvish Visionary can't do.
No, cannot fly.
Can't fly.
Cannot fly. Ground bound.
It's going to need a Nurok hover sail.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of drafts in that format. So.
A flying carpet.
Yeah.
I think. If memory serves.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. I think flying carpet works.
There's Jace.
I think it's one of the ones in the old cycle of if the creature dies, you lose this too, because they died wearing it. Similar mechanics appear on Rune Sword, Sandals of Abdallah.
This is Fallen Empire stuff, it sounds like to me.
Predates Fallen Empires.
Pardon
the
me.
Dark. Arabian Nights.
It was a dark time for Magic. Aptly named set.
Depends what you're trying to get out of the game.
Lossett's falling down to 9 from this Polluted Delta activation.
If you want the best gameplay, yeah, you probably shouldn't have the Sandals of Abdallah die when the guy dies too. But if you like Magic as a form of creative expression, there's arguments to doing it the other way.
Which I kind of do.
Magic's gotten pretty good at splitting the difference with things like the werewolves that flip. That's a good way of merging flavor in gameplay.
There's a Bloodstained Mire for Joe.
Boom.
Unclear what the casting cost is because it's so dark.
It's 4. And 2 to activate. Mono artifact means you have to tap it. Island walk ability, because if it just said island walk, that wouldn't be clear enough. No one would know what that meant. So island walk ability. If the creature is destroyed before end of turn, so are Sandals. I don't even know if that's English necessarily, but the point is that he was wearing them when he died, and so the Sandals are gone, lost in the sands of the Sahara. That is good flavor.
So if you control multiple types of Sandals, so our Sandals is not particularly clear.
Right. So the templating here is not as rigorous as it is in modern times.
Understood. Because you say that could cause an issue.
Yeah, I like island walkability.
Well, I'm glad that they're clear on that. Just hate to see your Sandals go down.
Exactly.
Here's a Treasure Cruise from Joe. We'll get to, is it Rune Sword?
Rune Sword, yeah.
Rune Sword. We'll get to Rune Sword in just a moment, as Joe's going to draw a couple of cards here, because that one's a doozy.
Yeah, great design, maybe not that well developed.
Don't know if it would slide through into a set nowadays.
Yeah.
And Joe's at 8. He's in a little bit of trouble here.
Black's sort of setting up this weird, like, punk out damage race sort of rally the ancestors. It's not going to be rally back a Zulpor Cutthroat and drain you out and make all these Catacomb Sifter tokens and so forth. But with Reflector Mage and the clock that he has to play in an Nantuko Husk, Lossett's a little clunky here. And if his follow-up is just Kalitas, that might get him killed.
Yeah, he could just rally for 3, assuming that Samir is able to draw a land, Reflector Mage Kalitas back, and then, who knows what happens.
And Black can also discard the Merciless Executioner, so he can clear out both creatures if he wants to.
That's true. Well, so that's going to tap a bunch of mana. What's going on now? Maybe Bring to Light? Yeah, there's Bring to Light. Thumbs up from Samir. Do your worst. I don't really even know what Joe's worst is. And Joe's going to search through his deck and figure out what his worst can be.
I think Lossett's got an inkling that just going ahead and casting Kalidas will get him killed. Something is too weird about Black's lines of play here. The attack last turn was a little bizarre.
Yeah, if I'm in Joe's spot, I'm not feeling good about casting Kalidas and having it be an end-all, be-all threat. Just doesn't feel like it to me.
Yeah, I guess the line of play you can take here, you can get a removal spell for an Antuco Husk. That probably buys you a couple turns. Not likely to die next turn if the Husk is off the table. Looks like that's where he's going. I was going to say the other option here is just to go get a Languish and hang back on defense with your Siege Rhino. But at that point, you're likely dead to a Rally because the Rally will get back a Reflector Mage that bounces your Siege Rhino, and enough creatures will come back, the Nantuko Husk will survive the Languish, and then you're probably dead. So I think Lossett respects the possibility of getting killed next turn and is taking a very conservative line of play.
Salumgar's Command is the weapon of choice here for Joe. And it looks like that takes care of Jace.
Also, bouncing the land here sets Black back at least one more turn for being able to cast Rally the Ancestors for 3, which is the number he needs to get back the Reflector Mage.
Got it. Time to draw. Evolving Wilds is the land. And Palace Familiar might be thinking about flying on in. Here come the beatdowns. And now, Merciless Executioner. You want to talk about synergy.
That is synergy.
Draw a card. Kill your Siege Rhino, be left over with a 3-1.
Though I will say, if you were going to take that line of play, I think my preference would have been to do that before combat and attack with an Nantuko Husk.
Maybe an extra point of damage sounds good.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's some, punish tapped creature effect or some sort that Black is playing around, but to me that just looks like 1 point of damage off the table.
Well, Joe is at 7 instead of maybe 6.
And now, with Evolving Wilds being the land, Lossett knows that he's potentially facing down a Rally of the Ancestors for 3 next turn, because the Canopy Vista was the land that was bounced. That's still in Black's hand.
And we can't forget about the Duress earlier in the game as well. So
yeah.
Joe knows what he's working with over there in some capacity. He knows there's at least one Rally. Now there's a swamp for Joe. It's land number 7. And now there's Kalidas.
And Black there not even hesitating to put the Merciless Executioner in the graveyard, setting up a Rally for 3 this turn.
Yeah, which I think is very, very smart. Sacrifice a Nantuko Husk right away. Now Rally's going to resolve. Nantuko Husk is out there on the battlefield. Now here come all the toys back. Reflector Mage, Merciless Executioner, Palace Familiar, and Jace return.
Quite a squad.
Yep. Be some triggers on the stack here, of course. Executioner is going to sacrifice the birdie. And now if everything is stacked appropriately, it looks like Black is in a pretty good spot. Now the thing is that you see how Joe's mana is left over? Feels like an Obzon Charm.
Reasonable chance.
Well, actually, I take it back. Black.
No,
you can't do it. You can't
he's got
do it.
double
Never
black.
mind.
Double black.
Can't do it. A zombie left over.
The zombie, though, is significant as it's a blocker for Nantuko Husk this turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perhaps if he stacks things differently, he just Reflector Mages Kalidas and is able to attack for potentially lethal?
Yeah.
So perhaps another misstep there from Black as Joe is already reaching towards his mana.
Also, as the first order of business, if you bounce the Kalidas, that means that if you want to sacrifice your Palace Familiar to the Merciless Executioner, you draw a card at least.
Also true. Also true. What feel like minor mistakes might be adding up into one major mistake that allows Joe Lossett to perhaps steal this game. Here comes Other End. It's going to go after Jace. I think you got to sacrifice that to Nantuko Husk right away, yeah. And now Joe is going to sacrifice a Bloodstained Mire. Now remember, Rally resolved last turn, so Nantuko Husk is going to have to eat some stuff, I think. There's Siege Rhino. Lossett's going to go up to 9.
Well, I worry that this line of play gets Lossett killed by a second Rally.
Which I think it might.
Because he's going to be able to sacrifice the stuff to the Husk.
6/6 Husk right now.
Get back a bunch of stuff. The stuff that he gets back will handle the 2 blockers in play and give him enough to punch through.
Yeah, here's another Rally. Some creatures are going to come back. Jace, Reflector Mage, and that Merciless Executioner. Bounce a Rhino. Sacrifice Jace, perhaps, or this is fine as well. There goes the zombie. Husk is a 6/6. He can make it into a 10/10, attack for 10, which is more than 9. And that should get the job done, assuming the life totals are correct here.
Yep, there was 4, +4/+4 on the upkeep, and then...
Well, now we have to confirm life totals, because I feel like they may have missed something.
Yeah, that looked like 10 coming across
That
to me.
looked like 10 to me as well.
2 for the Husk, 2 sacks on the upkeep, and then 2 sacks on the main phase post Rally.
Yeah, that appears what should have been a lethal attack, and players are clearing that up right now. As you mentioned, 2 sacks on the upkeep.
Yeah, there's a lot of triggers going on, so I don't want to say definitively that we have life total isn't necessarily all that up to date. Okay.
Yeah, but it's always good to confirm the game state. Don't want to have an illegal actions in a game take place. So that was going to be a lethal attack there from Samir Black. Players able to figure things out, and they're all good to go. So Samir Black's going to win game number 1 here over Joe Lossett. 4-color Rally, up a game now over 5-color Bring to Light.
And, you know, that was a really important one to catch, because it's possible that Samir Black deals 0 points of damage for the rest of the game if Joe gets to untap.
Yeah, if Samir is sacking all of his stuff like that, yeah. I think he's imagining that that's a lethal attack. So he was correct about that, and he does win game number 1 here over Joe. So we go to the sideboards now here for each player, and we find for Joe Lossett 3 Hallowed Moonlight, 2 Painful Truths, 3 Surge of Righteousness, 2 Negate, and some one-ups here in Flaying Tendrils, Silk Wrap, and Offense of the Foremost, Dent Protector, and Crackling Doom.
I like getting a little more exiling removal into the deck here. So the Silk Wrap, the Flaying Tendrils, and Offensive fits in very naturally. 2 copies of Negate and 3 copies of Hollow Moonlight protect him from the combo. So a lot of sideboarding here to do for Lossett. I think he can get away from some of his slower, less efficient creatures, some of the spot removal that doesn't do a whole lot, and bringing more counter spells and more anti-graveyard measures.
The other side of things, 4 Ration Clerics, 3 Dispel, 3 Murderous Cut, 2 Offense of the Foremost, 2 Duress, and a Fleshbag Marauder.
I want the Fleshbag Marauder, the 2 copies of Duress, and the 3 copies of Dispel. I think with Fleshbag Marauder and his copies of Reflector Mage, he doesn't necessarily have to bring in the Murderous Cuts, but if he has cards that he thinks are inefficient and he wants to protect himself from things like Inoffensa and Kalitas, he can bring in some of the Murderous Cuts as well.
Well, that gives you an idea of what both players are working with here. This 5-color Bring to Light deck, something Joe's been playing for a little while. Don't know how well it matches up against Rally. That first game was somewhat competitive, but again, we saw a player draw Kalitas and it not be good enough.
Well, I think that card, it can be good in multiple matchups. And we have seen it be good against Rally as well over the course of this tournament, but it needs to be backed up by other stuff. Lossett was just kind of leaning on Kalitas to do all the work that game, and the Reflector Mages and Fleshbag Marauders and so forth proved too much to overcome.
Now you see Joe Lossett wearing that Nerd Rage Gaming hoodie. He is a member of Team Nerd Rage Gaming. Some of his teammates include Matthew Tickle and Eric Hawkins, SCG Tour Superstars, as well as Caleb Shearer. And for Caleb, he did win that Invitational in Season 4 at Las Vegas to qualify for the Players' Championship, where he made a Day 2 run. And as a result, the Storm counter you see here and the ways to go about getting it.
Yeah, anyone who registers for any of our Opens or Classics will get this token when they enter. If you're unable to make it to our Opens or Classics, any order from StarCityGames.com, $5 or greater, beginning January 29th at noon Eastern Time, will be shipped with this Caleb Shearer token free of charge.
Now for Joe, someone that we see on the SCG Tour so often, He's looking to get that first invitational win, but as you mentioned, he's been in the Players' Championship twice, and he's had good runs in each of them. Has a 36-year-old from Redlands, California, 18 open top 8s with 5 wins, 4 of which in standard, 2 invitational top 8s as well. Big Star Wars guy, StarCraft 2 player as well, also a big-time follower there, and loves to play some slow, grindy control decks like 5-color Bring to Light and Miracles.
And it's great to see Lossett back here trying to qualify for the Players' Championship when the changes were made to the SCG Tour and the points stopped being given out at IQs. A lot of people assume for our West Coast players like Joe Lossett, well, that would be the end of the road for him trying to get to the Players' Championship and grinding these events. But he's at the Opens. He's trying to get back to the Players' Championship and has not been deterred by the change to the structure. So that's very good to see.
Game number 2 about to be underway here between Samir Black and Joe Lossett. Joe Lossett will be on the play for game number 2. If you are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, we are here in the booth bringing you the first standard tournament with Oath of the Gatewatch at SCG Live, hashtag SCGATL all weekend long for your tweets as we're in round number 12. 3 more rounds to go before we make a cut to the top 8 and figure out who's going to play in our elimination rounds this evening and walk out of here with $5,000, 30 SCG points, and invite to our Columbus Invitational. Of course, we've got Nick Miller in the sideboard. He's doing your deck techs and picking your feature matches all weekend long. Already had some great deck techs with Kent Ketter and Jeff Hoagland, as well as Ross Merriam. So head over to our coverage page to watch those and also see our metagame breakdown where we found 23 4-color rally decks in a day 2, about 20% of the day 2 metagame.
Though we've also gotten to watch a lot of people with the formula for beating it, which has been nice to see. Brad Nelson, Jerry Thompson, Brian Bronduin last round with really clinical, surgical defeats of 4-color rally, especially in the post-board games with the right mixture of negates and duresses, spot removal, some sweepers. Not one individual card is going to do it, but if you have the right mixture of stuff, your matchup against 4-color rally can be very good.
So both players will take a look at their opening hands, and we'll see if they're happy with what they find. I'm curious to see where Bring to Light does go from here. As it looks like Joe's going to take another mulligan. I think he might be going down to 5 here, but we will confirm.
Well, it's a very open-ended card, so you can build it all sorts of different ways.
You can go many ways. That's what I like about it. That's what I like about it. And it looks like he is on his way down to 5. You know what Joe's going to need after this match?
What?
Some Orzhov cookie crumble. Oh, yeah. Maybe Chandra's half-baked cookie dough.
I gotta say, I do love the creativity of the names. There's a good range of short ones and long ones. I'm not feeling Waste's vanilla.
Waste vanilla does not play well.
It's not great.
And I'm,
garbage can chocolate. It's like, all right. Well, do you have any other options? I don't want to order that one.
I'm not too big on Jace the Ice Sculptor's Brain Freeze and the little note underneath it that it's dairy-free.
I do like the clunky verbose ones.
Oh, you like those?
I like mixing those in with the sort of the more precise, simple puns.
Also, the rest of these are pretty clear what they are. Is it overload? Very unclear what I'm getting with that product.
Right.
There's a mention of birthday cake. Cookie crumbles, obviously cookies and cream. Brain freeze, I imagine some sort of blue ice cream. And then cookie dough speaks for itself.
Only one way to find out, and then in parentheses, assuming that it's free.
Yeah. Here is a silk wrap to take care of Jace. Samir's not too happy about that as his powerful planeswalker goes away.
And that's part of the puzzle here. Start getting things into exile. And this is also part of the puzzle, is Samir missing a land drop.
Indeed. Perhaps he should have led with the Palace Familiar to draw out the silk wrap.
That's assuming a lot.
Yeah. Okay, maybe not. Tough to say. Joe going to sacrifice a Wooded Foothills here and dig up a land.
Palace Familiar? All right, I'll murderous cut it.
Yeah. Get
out of my way.
I'm not taking one.
I remember what happened last game.
Yeah.
I took these chip shots from that stupid Palace Familiar and barely died. I'll kill it. All right, now I'll resolve my Jace. Seems unlikely.
Yeah. I'm saying anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
We're going over to Lossett now. Searched up a Cinder Glade with that Wooded Foothills. There's a Prairie Stream. So all the battle lands here for Joe. All right, now I'm doing the check on Samir's deck list because here comes Palace Familiar.
24 lands.
Yeah, is it 24? Okay.
Yep.
It just seems like it happens a lot. As Joe's going to cast an Obzon Charm. I think he's going to draw 2 cards at the cost of 2 life.
Well, there's a couple things going on here. This deck has way less card drawing than a lot of the decks in Standard, and you also feel it with this deck missing land drops a lot more because it doesn't do a whole lot for 2 or 3 mana. A lot of decks in Standard, even when they miss land drops, they're still casting Anafenzas and Obzon Charms, and decks like a Tarkarite can function off of 2 or 3 lands. When this deck is missing land drops, it doesn't beat a draft deck.
That's true.
Yeah, it's just the nature of the deck makes it feel way worse when it's missing land drops.
Smoldering Marsh was the land there for Joe.
A lot riding on that Jace earlier in the game.
Yeah, it was pretty important as usual. Joe has all 5 battle lands. Look at that. Just how he drew it up.
That's got to be some sort of, like FNM achievement.
Yeah.
Get all 5 battle lands into play.
And now Bring the Light. That's clear for takeoff. So, for how much?
Can you do it for 5? No, I can do it for 10.
Yeah. And it'll be...
That's Flaying Tendrils. That's a big upgrade for Joe's deck here. The presence of this card. Before, he's had to play with Radiant Flames, which doesn't synergize with Bring to Light. Now he's got a powerful sweeper, very good for this matchup, better than Radiant Flames is, and he can also find it with his Bring to Light. Big upgrade.
Grim Horror Specs discarded here from Samir Black. Plains the draw for Lossett. Remember, this is a game in which Lossett did mulligan to 5. But he's operating just fine now. Oh, there's Kalidas. Ha!
Boom.
Land 3. Polluted Delta in the house.
Which I believe cannot get green mana.
You are correct.
So, Nantuko Husk time, I suppose.
So are you rescinding that boom?
It's a little boom. It's a start. He needs 4 lands for Collected Company anyway, so you got to start somewhere.
That's true. Wooded Foothills. An attack here for 3. Lifelink, by the way. Players will sort out the life totals, make sure they have them correct.
You know why it has lifelink?
Why?
It's a vampire.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was an easy one.
Yep.
Some of the questions I ask you are hard. Some of the questions I ask you don't even have an answer. That one's an easy one.
That's why I just respond with why now, because I just don't feel like I can ever guess correctly. Prairie Stream is the land that's been found. The draw is a Jace.
So I'm not a huge fan of fetching out the Prairie Stream in that spot because it means if Samir Black drew a Flooded Strand, he would not be able to fetch for Canopy Vista. I think he'd better serve sitting on the fetch land. If you draw your copy of Flooded Strand, you can fetch for an island and then use the Flooded Strand to go get a Canopy Vista, rather. Sorry, not Prairie Stream. Canopy Vista. Then you can cast your Collected Company.
So you'd like a land. Basically, if he draws Flooded Strand next turn, you'd like for that to be able to enter the battlefield untapped.
For green mana.
Yeah, so you can play Collected Company right away.
And it's not like it sets you behind in terms of getting your land that comes into the battlefield tapped and then untapped, because you can always get a basic with it and just get that land to play untapped. So it's subtle stuff.
But the subtle stuff, especially with this rally deck, adds up.
Yes.
That's the thing.
With all the decks in Standard that are built around these kind of mana bases, you need to be on top of it at all times.
The draw. Reflector Mage. An activation of Jace. Time to draw and discard. Looks like it might be Eiley, Eternal Pilgrim. Time to discard, however. And there goes the Eternal Pilgrim. And now Reflector Mage is going to attempt to bounce Kalidas. Well, Kalidas is getting picked up. And Lossett will sacrifice the Bloodstained Mire. Lossett will search up a basic swamp. And, of course, cannot play Kalidas this coming turn, but can the turns afterward. That annoying Reflector Mage.
Question.
Answer.
How many different lands are in Lossett's deck that he's playing exactly one copy of?
Ooh. Okay, I'm not going to look at the deck list.
Yeah, I got it concealed.
Okay. 11.
You overshot it. It's only 9.
I was going to say 9. Come on. The 5 battle lands and then one of each basic?
1 plains, 1 island, 1 windswept heath, and 1 lumbering falls.
Okay. I was actually going to say 9. A little disappointed in myself. That's right. There's always next time for one of your ridiculous questions. Looks like I'm going to search up a basic forest here with the windswept heath. And now we're going to head back to Samir. Time for him to draw. And windswept heath.
Timely.
Indeed. Flooded strand.
Getting a little something going now.
Yep. Jace is going to be transforming probably. Yep, there goes Husk. That's the 5th card. Transform the Jace. Now shuffle Joe's deck. Jace starts on 5. Can start casting Collected Companies. All that good stuff. All right, all right. It's taking a little time to get out of these mana troubles, but finding a way. Here comes Reflector Mage, so that's going to fall down to 15. This game taking a little while, though. Joe wins this game. Game 3, I don't know if they're going to have time, as Jace is going to tick on up. Lossett will draw. Again, we know he's got Kalitas in hand. There it is. I think we'll have a response. Joe's expecting it to die, I think. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Well, I'm not sure if I would respond. I think that I would want to let it resolve.
This is something that we saw earlier yesterday.
Yes, I would want the opportunity for Reflector Mage, unless there's some crazy set of synergies where he would want to sacrifice some things before Kalitas came into play. That seems less likely than just hitting Reflector Mage and wishing that there was a Kalitas in play for you to bounce.
Hollowed Moonlight.
All right, doesn't matter.
Yep. Take a look at the top 6. Zilliport Cutthroat was in there. And a Fenza. And a Merciless Executioner. And if he would this is exactly what you're talking about, though. If he would found Merciless Executioner,
yeah,
huge disaster.
Huge deal.
Yeah.
Didn't matter because of Hollow Moonlight, but you want, I think, in that spot to just let it resolve. You have so many things that are beneficial for the Kalitas to be in play when you're resolving your Collected Company.
Flooded Strand, going to get sacrificed here. Samir going to fall down to 10. Keep in mind, Jace on 6. There's Sunken Hollow. Gets into the battlefield untapped because of the Forest of the Plains. 2 basics are out there. And now a Murder's Cut. Delve away some nonsense. There goes Kalitas. Here come the beatdowns via Reflector Mage. Lossett's going to fall down to 13. Jace moving on up. Here's Collected Company. Jace actually moving on down. I lied. Hollowed Moonlight says Collected Company's not going to do anything. What were these 6 cards going to be? Cease is Faithful, another Jace. Meh.
Not a whole lot.
Kind of would have been a miss anyway.
Yeah, 6 cards you're happy to have on the bottom of the deck.
Yeah. All right, back to Joe. He'll untap all these lands. Now it's time for him to draw. It's like another copy of Hollowed Moonlight in hand.
Yeah, 3 copies post board. I think he's found all of them.
And it looks like a Den Protector in hand as well. If you're Samir, you get to keep just kind of going this beatdown route because it doesn't look like Joe's got much to do to stop that. Though Siege Rhino maybe will put the brakes on that. There's Siege Rhino. Let's flip those life totals. It's 10 to 13 right now. Let's have Joe gain some life. Let's have Samir lose some life. 16 to 7. Anything else for Joe? Maybe let me think in Den Protector face down?
I like putting the Den Protector face down, and if black passes the turn back, I like not unmorphing it. Just leave your 2 mana up for Hollow Moonlight. Then you can untap and try to find something if you want to go get something. But
Because he's got so many lands to work with.
yeah, I would not tap out, though.
Collected Company right now. Hollowed Moonlight again.
Yep.
Joe gets to draw another card. What this one would have been? Nantuka Husk, Zillipore Cutthroat, Merce Executioner, or Cutthroat.
Some hits in this one.
Yeah, this one would have mattered, actually. But those all go to the bottom. So a third Hollowed Moonlight and the potential for a fourth one because of Den Protector.
This is a curious attack here, because if you respect the possibility of that being a Den Protector, then even if you plus the Jace, Lossett can flash back a Bring to Light, go get a Siege Rhino and kill you even if Jace pluses. If Black has a follow-up play, then maybe it's fine.
Well, you played Evolving Wilds. Sacrifice that, go get a basic Swamp. Maybe a Sidisi's Faithful?
Sure, I guess.
Murderous
Cut.
All
Okay.
right, makes sense. Gonna take care of Den Protector with that.
Okay, this setup is fine then. Unless Black had something really specific laid out there, I was worried that this play was going to get him killed, but he had a plan here and he's fine.
Now you plus the Jace, you slow down the Rhino. You're at 7. Can't kill the Jace with the Rhino, and can't kill you, it appears. So not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Looked risky on the surface, but Black had a setup there that he was trying to execute.
There's Flooded Strip. Joe with Languish in hand. I want to talk about a card that's fallen off a cliff. I remember when that thing got printed. Everyone was terrified. Not sure that one's quite lived up to the hype. There's a basic island.
I think the story of that card is fairly complicated. Has a lot to do with the amount of card advantage that's floating around in Standard. Has to do with the mana bases not being very good at facilitating double mana spells. Has a lot to do with 5 toughness being prevalent in a lot of decks. But given the hype that it saw when it first got spoiled, you're right, it's definitely underperformed that. It's a lot of small factors.
Looks like Joe's delving away some stuff. It feels like a treasure cruise is on the way. Maybe he's just getting an idea of what's in his graveyard. Yeah, it's a cruise. So he's going to delve away 7 cards. 5 lands, Abzan Charm, and a Hollowed Moonlight are gone. But more importantly, 3 cards are on the way. So now let's see what else Joe Lossett can figure out here. He's got a lot of lands to work with, quite a few cards in hand. Unclear the contents of his hand at this stage, outside of that Languish. And now here come the beatdowns. Jace going to fall down to 2. There's Silk Wrap. That'll take care of Reflector Mage. And now it looks like it's going to be a face-down Den Protector, and it is.
Which allows him, if he needs to unmorph, get back a Hollowed Moonlight and cast.
To Samir we go. He'll draw. Picked up another copy of Jace. Up goes Jace. Slow down that Rhino. Pass the turn back. That's not very exciting. And if I'm Joe, I think I'm just untapping.
Unless he's not worried at all about the graveyard, but you still have to respect Collected Company. I think I just take the untap here.
Yeah. That's exactly what he does. Draws a card.
Legacy Classic players, welcome to round 4 and 7. You have 50 minutes. You may begin.
Curious where he wants to go this turn again, because he does have Den Protector with a lot of options in the graveyard. That's why he spread it out a little bit.
Well, it's tough now because if he wants to split the attacks with Den Protector going after Jace and Siege Rhino going after Black for the 2 points of damage, he has to unmorph the Den Protector now. That gives a window for Black to respond with something like Collecting Company or Rally the Ancestors. The way that Lossett can protect himself from this is simply sending both of them at Jace, but then he's potentially down a couple points of damage.
Well, we'll find out exactly where these creatures are going to go with this attack, because it is a complicated one. And you can tell with how the way that Joe has motioned there, looks like they're going different places. So the morph, which could be anything, is going after Jace. And the Siege Rhino is going after Samir. Now, this feels like a desperate attempt at a Rally of the Ancestors.
Just getting back one Death Touch creature, essentially. Which is probably not enough for Lossett to make any sort of move.
Not really. Den Protector is going to unmorph. And actually, Den Protector is big enough that it can't be blocked. And now Joe will get back Den Protector. Eiley will block Siege Rhino. Jace is down, it appears. And maybe we have something like an Obzon Charm here. Siege Rhino should. If there was a block, those creatures should trade.
No, Siege Rhino is 2 power.
Oh, you're correct because of Jace. Thank you. So the Death Toucher takes care of the Rhino.
Doesn't really matter because Rally's in the equation anyway. So
also true. Yep, and now that's on the stack. Lossett did play a morph.
Interesting enough, it's actually worse for black that the Siege Rhino didn't kill it because now it's exiled instead of in the graveyard.
Here's a Jace. But I think we're going to be heading to a third game here in just a moment. I think Joe's in some pretty good position right now. That rally that Samir cast was just so poor.
Yes.
Because there's just nothing going on in his graveyard. See what this is going to be. Another morph. Lossett's going to unmorph the first Den Protector.
And why he's doing it in this order is because he wants to get a little bit more pressure into play, and he wants to always be able to respond to anything by unmorphing a Den Protector and getting back a Hallowed Moonlight. So he plays the second one, or the third one, I suppose, down. So we can unmorph the second one, get back the Hallowed Moonlight, and if black makes any sort of move, he has the other one in play that can be unmorphed in response and get back the Hallowed Moonlight.
Makes sense, since here's an attack for 6. Black will fall down to 1. And now Lossett is going to tap a whole bunch of mana.
He may be going for Bring to Light for Siege Rhino to win the game. The question is there anything that Collected Company could produce to gain enough life where that doesn't work?
Feels unlikely to me.
But what's the risk of passing the turn when you have Hallowed Moonlight available?
Perhaps playing a Bring to Light right now is an unnecessary risk.
Yeah.
And I think Joe just says, I'll pass the turn back and not take that unnecessary risk. And Tuco Husk the draw. Here's a Jace activation. Draw and discard. Island was the draw. Husk is going to go to the graveyard. Island is the land for the turn. And black will just pass the turn back. That discard was his 4th card in the graveyard. Joe will only draw 1 card, of course. And now he'll attack with all of his creatures. Here's Collected Company. Unmegamorph. Get back Hallowed Moonlight. Stop your Collected Company. And that'll do it for game number 2. Samir, Black, Joe Lossett, all tied up with not much time left.
If you're going to, Lossett has been criticized in some circles for pace of play. Some of that is a function of the decks he plays. He plays Miracles and Legacy and 5-color Bring to Light and Standard. These are slow decks. But if you go back and watch that second game, the point at which the game was firmly in Lossett's control, and it's just an issue of navigating the last couple turns well enough to get the game over with, don't take any unnecessary risk, to the game finally ended, was about 6 minutes. It went from roughly 12 minutes to now where we're at now. I think there was the possibility of some faster play there, giving up some margin without risking disaster, where maybe we're looking at the game starting at the 8-minute mark rather than the 5-minute mark. Those are, I think, the spots when Lossett's ahead where he needs to be a little bit more willing to give up a little bit of an edge to wrap up the games he's winning a bit faster.
Yeah, because now, as these players are going to shuffle up pretty quickly, try to get ready, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to finish. Well, as they start to look at opening hands here, we'll talk about the StarCityGames.com newsletter. It is your source for Magic Gathering news. It's easy to sign up for, and it's free.
All the best information going on with Star City Games, with information about the SCG Tour, with a selected SCG Tour match of the week, exclusive deck lists and advice from many of Star City Games' most popular columnists, and an exclusive cardboard crack comic. Best of all, signing up is free over at go.starcitygames.com/newsletter.
Simple, straightforward, easy. And now we watch game number 3. Both players starting off with some battle lands here. For Samir Black, it was a Sunken Hollow, now a Prairie Stream. For Joe Lossett, a Canopy Vista. And now Wooded Foothills. Let's go back to Samir. He'll draw. Both these players are going to have to try to play some very fast Magic if they want to finish.
And this is not a matchup that is conducive to a very fast pace of play.
No, it is not. As there is a Swamp and Antuco Husk there for Samir Black. Lossett's going to sacrifice his Wooded Foothills.
So you see the first proactive play from either player is a Grey Ogre.
Nice. Very, very nice. As we head Joe Lossett's way. A Swamp. An Anafenza. And now we head back over to Samir Black. A Collected Company was his draw. And he does have green mana. Okay.
And very important to resolve this while the shields on things like Counterspells and Hollow Moonlight's down.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's potentially worse against something like Languish the next turn.
Who wants a Reflector Mage? Anybody?
I'll settle for Merciless Executioner. It's fine. That would also be fine.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
Boom.
Reflector Mage and Fleshback Marauder. So, Reflector Mage is going to bounce, and now Zillipore Cutthroat is going to come down as well. Get out of here, Anafenza. Attack for 2. Do you like Reflector Mage there, or try to kill the creature?
I think I would take the Reflector Mage.
Yeah. Let's see what this is. Jace. Joe going to search for an island there with the Polluted Delta.
Just more pressure in play, and I think it's a more powerful thing to be able to put in your graveyard and get back later on in the game.
All right, well, he just drew a Merciless Executioner, so.
So, yeah.
I see what you're saying.
It's very close.
Yeah.
I slightly prefer the Reflector Mage. I'm also kind of happy for Joe to try to recast the Anafenza. If he wants to spend mana doing that.
All right.
If you're just going to bounce it or kill it again.
Yep. Samir trying to figure out how he wants to sequence. Well, Jace only costs 2, so.
Oh, it's Liliana, I think.
Oh, it is Liliana. Never mind. I did not expect that. Oh, the setup.
Yes, it's getting good.
I see what's happening here.
Oh, it's getting good. And there's a rally in hand, too.
Yeah, I see the setup.
And it seems very likely that Lossett is not going to be able to keep up on the board without tapping out.
Mm-hmm. Sacrifices Zillipore Cutthroat to the Antuco Husk. Liliana going to flip, bring a zombie along with it. Lossett's going to fall down to 9.
I can even plus the Liliana.
Yeah, discard a land. Bring it down to 1, however. Hollow Moonlight's going to take care of that. And if I'm Samir, that's fine.
Yeah, that represents a win. But before the last game, Black was not able to get enough going, and the Hollow Moonlights were trading with things like Collected Company and Rally. If you're getting it for a Liliana activation, that's a huge win, especially with Rally already in hand.
Mm-hmm. Lossett with a Polluted Delta. And he will sacrifice that. Going to fall down to 8. What land does Joe want here? He's going to consult his hand. Not a lot of time left for him to be doing that. Now he's just trying to stave off elimination, I think.
Yeah, Lossett, I would be shocked if he was able to win the game in the allotted time. Black certainly has more than enough time to work with.
Yeah, especially with this draw. Here's the Jace activation. Obzon charm the draw. There goes Jace. Transform, Jace. 5 counters. What's next? Looks like an Offenza. Jace goes up. Slow down Husk, it looks like. Okay. And now Black would like to untap, and he'll be allowed to. Draw a card. Zilliport Cutthroat.
Fortunately for Lossett, this line of play plays right into the maw of Merciless Executioner.
It's bad news.
You can see that, what's happening here is he's just sort of getting worn down by these chip shots. Eventually, he's going to have to tap out for something fairly large to catch back up, and then Rally will be there to finish out the game.
There is Merciless Executioner. That'll resolve. Executioner down for good. Now Cutthroat, as this is turn number 0, by the way. Here come the beatdowns. It looks like just with Reflector Mage. And I like plussing Liliana here and just discarding that land personally. But actually, that's tough, right? Because you don't want to plus because you need land number 6 potentially for, I guess Rally's always going to be for 3. Right?
Well, he only has 5 mana right now, and he also doesn't have double white.
Oh, he's got single white. Okay, it makes more sense. The Delta can find another Prairie Stream. Assuming there is a second Prairie Stream, which there is.
I agree. My first instinct was that, you might as well plus the Liliana. You get up to 3, and then you get even more shenanigans the turn that you rally. But he needs that land to cast Rally in the first place.
All right. Here's Bring the Light. See what this is going to be for. Kalidas. I think, Yeah, I guess well, I guess you cast the card off Bring the Light.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So
this is why it doesn't work with converge spells.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is why we're going to see Samir respond by sacrificing his board, except for Nantuko Husk, so that he can rally everything back. Jace is going to go up. It's turn number 2 of extra turns.
Yeah, and I think that surviving this rally will be not doable.
No. There's Blue to Delta.
Very sharp play there from Black, though, understanding the various,
There's that second Prairie Stream. That's that second White Source of Mana for the Rally the Ancestors.
I've not been on board with every single decision that got made, but in terms of understanding the operations of his deck and how to get things in the graveyard at the right times, Black has been on the ball during this match.
Rally the Ancestors, folks. Bring them on back. Reflector Mage is going to bounce there. Kindly leave. Here's an attack. Sack there. Sack there. And that should be for 4 points of damage. And that's going to do it. Samir Black's going to win this match here over Joe Lossett 2-1. 4-color Rally taking care, of 5-color Bring to Life for Lossett, number 12 on our Season 1 leaderboard. He falls down to 9-3. But for Samir Black, another one of those Rally players up to 10-2.
I've seen a recurring theme in the post-board games here involving the blue control swath of decks. When the Rally deck is able to get onto the board early on and get some of the synergies going, the post-board cards are a lot less effective. When the Rally deck stumbles out of the gates, the blue deck is able to get set up and then back it up with negates and duresses. The Rally deck is often ineffectual. So a lot of the game feels like it's coming down to what's happening in the first 2 or 3 turns of the game post-board. Game number 2 there, Black was missing land drops, and even Lossett mulligan to 5 still was able to get set up and do his thing.